Okay, let's start. So welcome again to our virtual launch, the second session of 2017. My name is Claude Horreutiner. I'm in charge of BVMS for Asia Pacific, and I've been asked today to conduct this session for EMEA, China, and Asia Pacific. So I'm going to first go through the slides, and then you will have time for questions afterwards. On top of that, you will be able to download the slide deck at the end of this session. So why are we doing this session today? So as you know, BVMS is having two lunch every year, one in October and one in April, and that's quite a lot. So we want to make sure that you always have the latest information as soon as possible, fresh out of the oven. We also want you to be able to ask questions. We want to have an interactive session with you. So this is why there will be a Q&A session at the end. What are we going to speak about today? So we're going to speak about BVMS 8.0, BIS 4.5, and retail chains. Let's start straight away with BVMS 8.0. So with BVMS 8.0, we have improved quite a lot of things, but I'm going to concentrate here because of the short amount of time on one major topic, which is how operators are interacting with cameras. And on this topic, I will have three subtopics. So GPU decoding, video stitching, and how to handle the latest fancy MIC IP Fusion 9000i from our colleagues from BVMS. So behind all this geeky and nerdy terms is actually some nice things that can really improve the life of your operators. First, GPU decoding. So until today, BVMS was using mostly the CPU of a computer to decode video, which was fine until we see really a pickup in Ultra HD cameras, in panoramic cameras, which are 12 megapixel, and H.265 camera, which BVMS does support now. So these cameras do require a lot of CPU power to be decoded, and it means that you might have some disappointment being only able to decode 4 or 6 of these cameras on a computer. So this is why we are introducing GPU decoding. So GPU decoding uses the graphic card of your computer to decode Ultra HD cameras and so on. So this is really good for you because you are able to display almost as many high definition cameras as before. Or if you have normal cameras, you're also able to have more cost-efficient workstations to decode the same amount of cameras. Okay. The second thing that we have within BVMS 8.0 is video stitching. So video stitching is quite fancy. So you have to think about video stitching as a way of stitching multiple cameras together, which are having a different look at the same scene. So as you can see on the slides, we have 3 cameras here that's actually in Barcelona, which are having a different look at the same scene. So video stitching will basically take these 3 cameras, stitch them together, and it will give a virtual PTZ view to an operator. So this operator, when he selects this camera, will be able to pan and tilt and zoom within this large view of a scene. With video stitching today, we are able to stitch up to 16 cameras together, okay? Whether they are side by side, one on top of the other, or one image inside another image, you can do basically all these things together. As an operator, you will not have to worry about selecting a camera anymore, knowing which camera is next to which camera. It's extremely helpful when you have large areas. Think about airports, seaports, could be prisons, could be the entrance of a train station. All these areas where you have a lot of cameras looking at one scene, you basically are able to unify this in one single view for the operator. Now, it could still be complicated for an operator to make sense of what is what, okay? What is the context of this view? Especially when you have really large scenes like an airport. So for that, we have actually what we call augmented reality tags. So these are actually text tags that we can put on video stitch. And with this, when you zoom in a certain area, you will have basically a pop-up of a video showing, hey, that's gate A5, or that's entrance B, or that's basically airplane number XYZ. Some people might think that it would be complicated to set up video stitching. Well, actually, our engineering people have created a very nice configuration tool, making it super easy and efficient to stitch cameras together. You'll see it's really nice, it's very easy, it's graphical, you don't have to do any textual configuration or change any log file or whatever. Final thing about BVMS today, I'm going to speak about this camera, the MIG IP9000i. So you can see it looks like a MIG, it just has a larger head because it's a dual head camera. So you have an optical imager and you have a thermal imager at the same time. So this camera is going to be used by a lot of people in the industrial area, transportation, and so on. So how do we manage this within BVMS, having a camera with two optics or two heads? So it's a bit like the panoramic cameras that we have within BVMS. So when you basically select this camera, on the top right of your screen, you will have this little icon where you can select thermal or optical. And here we go to thermal, and you're going to get the thermal image from this camera. The other thing you can do is, if you do a click drop, you will be able to have a thermal and an optical camera side by side. So regardless of which ones you select, you will still be able to pan, tilt, and zoom within the two cameras at the same time. Let's move to BIS. Lots of new stuff with BIS. So once again, I'm going to speak about three interesting points, or the most interesting points that we have at the moment. So the first one is enrollment and all the work we've done on the access engine side for BIS. Second thing is the integration of subsystems. And the last thing is what we call the audited configuration. So let's have a look at the access control enhancements that we've done during this last one or two versions of BIS. First, BIS is now a platform which is extremely suitable for large access control projects. Meaning if you have multiple sites around the world, meaning if you have a metro system with one server in each train station, we are able to basically have a solution for all these different systems. On top of that, we have now a high availability solution for access control using what we call the three-tier architecture. So this has to do with MACs, which is something that talks to our AMC2 door controllers that can be redundant, or you can have a failover MAC. It's really a nice thing that we have right now. You should not forget that on top of being just an access control platform, BIS does a lot of reporting. And this is really helpful in case you have problems, evacuations, or whatever. BIS is able to give you a list of people, of cars, or any other kind of items or things that are in certain locations. And that's really helpful for people in mustering environments. Open interfaces, we're going to discuss about that a bit later on, but we have actually done a lot of things with third-party systems regarding visitor management, car park management, and so on. Let's drill down a bit further in the new features of BIS. So BIS has now a much nicer enrollment system, and I would like to share that with you. First, you can enroll a card within any reader of the system. You do not have to have an enrollment reader, which is actually a big change. Many people will welcome that quite a lot. The second thing is you are now able to have a single enrollment page for fingerprint readers. So in the past, when you had BIS and fingerprint, you had to have two systems, two software, two enrollment pages. It was always a bit complicated and tedious for operators to enroll people. Now, all the fingerprints, backend, database, enrollment, everything is within BIS. So you can do everything in one go. On top of that, we've added a lot of customizable fields. So if you have an HR department, or if you have anything where you want to have some specific data recorded for specific people, you can do that and you can edit that within the solution. Then, if you want to have pictures of your employees or of people that need access control within your system, now you can use an inexpensive webcam. As long as this webcam works with Windows, you are fine to use it. Then we have a completely new badge designer. So it's a completely new software which enables you to design badges in a really nice and easy way. It's even capable of creating barcodes and QR codes directly to be printed on badges. So it's a really nice tool that I do recommend that you use. Among the years, BIS has been the preferred platform for integrating all Bosch security products, from video to public address to access control to intrusion to fire. It's doing that very well. But during this last 2 or 3 revisions of this, we've been working really hard to make sure that we can also talk to third-party products. Okay, not only Bosch stuff, which is great, but we want to be able to talk to third-party products which are bringing a lot of value to this. So it can go from visitor management system, it can go to intercoms, and so on and so on. So all this is now working. We have a website where we have all the application notes for all these integrations. And this has been possible because we've created a lot of new APIs and SDKs to basically make these integrations capable and make this integration easy and cheap to be done. Okay. Last point, it's about configuration audit trail. Within this, for the longest time, you have an audit trail of what operators have done. So this is great, people love it. But what about operators? What about administrators? What about people configuring the system? As more and more IT people are using this and configuring this, for them, the administrators have to be audited. You need to know exactly who has configured what, when. And thankfully now, this is possible. And this is actually requested, it's admin requested by a lot of people, especially in the large projects. Finally today, I would like to speak about retail chains and about retail in general. Okay, so why do I want to speak about retail? Few reasons. The first one is we've done a lot of work, we've had a lot of projects, and we have now a lot of customers in the retail industry. Whether it's online retail, whether it's basically shops, small shops, large shops. Retail is also a key focus vertical for next year for Bosch Security. So it's important that you know about retail and about the capabilities that we have within retail. It's important for you to understand that retail is not only a shop. It could be warehouses, it's online shops, it's older shops with analog cameras, it's chains that are going across continents, it's also very large supermarkets. So we have solutions for basically all of them. The really nice thing with our solution is that it can scale from a small shop using BVMS Viewer to a warehouse or a large supermarket with BVMS Professional until a very large chain with a few thousand shops where you know, the one or multiple access control centers want to be able to check on what's happening within their stores. So now let's have a look at the small stores or the medium-sized store. What are the things that we can do for them? So on top of helping out with shoplifting or providing cost competitive solutions for them? Well, there are a few things. First, forensic search. Forensic search is a really interesting functionality for shops. So forensic search enables you to search within hours or days or months of video during a very, very short time. And that's really important for you guys, because if you have to browse for hours and hours of video, it's basically cost for your operators. It's basically cost for your shop, where if you can basically search for data and find people really quickly, it's actually a very good thing for you for saving costs. Second thing is in-store analytics. We see now in the US and elsewhere a rise of online shops. So online shops have an edge because they have a lot of data on their customers. They know exactly where you're clicking, what you're viewing, from which product you go to another product. So that's giving them a massive edge. So with in-store analytics, we are trying to give back to offline shops. So how can we provide data to online shops about their customers, about their customer behaviors, about how they use their floors, about who is actually going in the shops, where are they stopping, for how long, what are the products that they are interested in. And we can do that with the same cameras that you can use in a normal shop. So that's actually a very good thing for them. The second thing that we can do for shopping is basically large warehouses. So what you have to know is many warehouses today are actually automated. So the image that you see here is not really relevant anymore. If you go to the US, they are automated and they are working 24/7. So it's really important that if the warehouse owner wants to expand quickly, that your system can expand quickly. it's very important that your system has a very high availability. You want to have a high availability, but you don't want to have to pay for the cost of availability. And the resiliency concept of BVMS is basically providing just that. Having a highly available solution, making sure that it's resilient towards component failures, at the same time not having to pay for the high price of high availability solutions. Finally, security control centers. So we see that more and more. People are having 1 or 2 or 3 control centers to check on a few hundreds or a few thousand shops across a country or a continent or even across the world. So for these people, they want to make sure that scalability is not a problem. It has to be very easy for them to connect a site to their system. At the same time, you want to make sure that you keep the cost low because, as you can see, the numbers, a few thousand shops, the cost of a system can go up really quickly. So with our live and playback site concept, we have really a solution which has been tailored for retail chains. So with the system, you can have up to 10,000 stores, and each store can have a few hundred cameras, and all this can be controlled for one or multiple control centers across the world. We have a large retail chain in the US using this, and they are really happy with this. So that's the end of my presentation. So we're going to open up the questions to the floor. I can see that there are already a lot of questions. At the same time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide you with the access of the presentation. So here you should have the presentation in front of you. That's the PDF version. You can download it right now, absolutely no problems. And I will basically go back a bit and look at your questions. So first, how about the competitors regarding GPU decoding? So good question. Other people are doing that too. We are a bit late to the game, I have to say, but that's really a must now with H265 cameras. So Milestone and Genetec do have GPU decoding. They are also having what they call the quick sync decoding. So that's using specific instruction sets inside Intel CPUs. I like the GPU decoding that we have, to be honest with you. For your information, we are only working with NVIDIA on this. So if you have an ATI or AMD graphic card, it will not work. Within the BVMS release, we have a list of graphic cards that we support. So yeah, it's nothing out of the ordinary, but it's something that you have to have, and it's important to make it right. Can we set up when the text is in the text is shown? Not sure to understand the question. At the moment, for augmented reality within video stitching, you can of course set the text. So basically when you add these tags to the configurator, you can basically enter the text. At the moment this text is static, so it cannot change. But I've been told that there are a lot of people requesting to have that being able to be pushed dynamically. Let's say if you have an airport, you could basically have information about the flight numbers. That might come in the future, but of course might. Okay, does this support Schrack's coded fire alarm system? I don't know this fire alarm system. Let me know and I can basically ask, or if you could ask your MKR, if you can ask Mikhail, and he will be able to ask Holger about this. You can go to the BIS webpage, and on the BIS you will have a list of all the application notes, and if you do not find an application note for this, it doesn't mean it doesn't work. It means that it's not something that people have spent time on creating application notes, but I'm fairly sure that Holger has a list of all the fire alarm systems that we support. You just have to find an OPC server for it, and you're probably going to be good. Next question: will the in-store analytics now include those features available through CBS, such as heat mapping? So in-store analytics does provide heat mapping systems. So you have 3 cloud systems within ESS at the moment. The first one is CBS. So CBS is basically an intrusion-style video system. So with this, you are able to detect if people are going within your premises. If something happens, an alarm management company like G4S, for instance, will be alerted, and then you're going to get an operator being able to take over the system, send a message to the loudspeakers, or do anything to basically resolve the situation. The second one is a remote portal, is for the installers to basically manage and configure systems remotely, mostly working with the Diva IP5000 and now with IP cameras. And then finally, we have in-store analytics. So in-store analytics give you people counting, a really precise way of counting people. And then the other thing it does is it can do heat mapping and flow mapping. So you can have a nice heat map and a flow map of your shop. Okay, so these are modules. If you need more information, have a chat with Mikhail. And we have a nice presentation for in-store analytics. And you should be able to get all the answers to your question there. Next one. Okay, that's an answer. Can we have augmented reality with the stitching? From Norberto. Yes, so augmented reality is only within a stitch. So if you have a normal camera, you cannot have augmented reality within a normal camera. It has to be within a stitch. Interesting thing for you is video stitching enables you to have camera being stitched side by side, but you can also have a camera inside a camera. So why do you want to have this? Let's say you have a large area and you want to have a lot of detail in a small area within this area. So you have a camera with a wide field of view, and just next to it you have a camera with a really narrow telephoto lens, and when you zoom in you will have a lot of definition in this area. And of course you can have augmented reality on stitching wherever you want. So to answer your question, no, you cannot have augmented reality without video stitching. Now, you can have a stitch with only one camera. This is possible too. So you do not have to have multiple camera within a stitch. So within that, you will be able to have augmented reality on only one camera. When does BVMS support intelligent streaming of new Bosch firmware? That's a good question. I've been told by Mario that it's supposed to be in the next BVMS version, which will gonna be June next year. But it might have changed. They might do something earlier, so I honestly don't know. And I think for that we have to wait for the official announcement for the BVMS MKP. Next question, can the stitcher adjust video automatically? Yes, so basically what happened with video stitching, it can basically work with the two streams of cameras. So if you stitch multiple cameras and you zoom out completely, depending on the pixel count and the pixel density, you will get stream 1 or stream 2. And same thing when you zoom in, you're gonna get a different video quality. Now, if you say, can the stitcher adjust the video automatically? Yes. For the stitcher as well, you can also define the output of the stitcher, so as a camera. So at the moment, it's a 1080p camera, but if you want to have a 720p camera or lower, you can also do that. It's possible. Will BVMS support heat mapping? At the moment, without additional software, no. Because BVMS does just support cameras and you cannot get heat mapping. Now, if you want to show within a BVMS Cameo a heat map from the CBS system, from the in-store analytics system, you can do that by running a web browser within a Cameo. So it's something you could do. But I'm not sure if it's really what you're looking for. But at the moment, you cannot really show native heat maps within BVMS. Next question from Jens. How's the Sony IP camera portfolio integrated into BVMS? Only via OnVIF? Yes, this is correct. At the moment, Sony IP cameras are integrated through OnVIF. So a lot of work has been done to make sure that most of the Sony cameras are supported within BVMS. If you need live only, you do not need VSG, you have live only camera. If you want to have a camera which is recorded, then you need to have VSGs. Okay, so of course it increases the cost of it. I know that there are a lot of discussions at the moment about the support of Sony NVRs and basically how to handle existing installations for Sony IP cameras with Sony NVRs. I do not have more information. I just know that there are talks about this. Next question from Jens. Intelligent streaming need to be implemented ASAP, latest Feb. I do agree with you. It's out of my hands, but I do agree with you. Okay, Gerardo is asking a question. Okay, I see what you mean. At the moment, it's relatively, there's no way to change that, at least no way that I know about. Yeah, that's true. You see an orange dot, and then you have to zoom on it for it to basically pop up and to see the actual text. The problem is, if you have multiple points next to each other and you show the text all the time, then it might get super crowded on the image. But I'm not aware of any way to basically change the limit at which you will basically show that. So we have another question from Jens coming. Where can I find an overview letter of Sony camera BVMS integration? We basically have a file with BVMS where we list all the cameras that are integrated, and here you will see the list of Sony cameras next to all the other cameras from Axis and Hikvision and Dahua and everything. We have some more questions coming. So let me remind the audience, if you are keen to download the presentation, please do it now. Afterwards, the session will be closed and you won't be able to do that anymore. To download the session, it's easy. You just click on it, and then it will basically give you the button at the bottom left of your screen to enable the download. Okay, question for Uchao. When config the stitcher, everything needs to be done manually. Yes, you have to do things manually. There's nothing automatic, though the wizard that you use for the stitching configuration is actually quite simple to use and quite fast to use. I've done it myself, and it's really not difficult. Here below, Stephen Lee, any PC requirement for stitching workstation? Do you have any recommendation for the spec, like CPU, GPU, RAM? Okay. So video stitching is like our GPU decoding. It only works with NVIDIA graphic cards. If you look at the release notes, there's a minimum driver version that you have to use. We do not mandate any Quadro cards. You can use GeForce or Quadro, that's fine. Now, the limitation that we have is you can have only one stitch per computer. Okay, so it means that one computer has one graphic card, and you can have on this overall computer only one stitch. So that's the official answer, and that's how it works. As you can see here, I'm in the Experience Center of Bosch in Singapore, and we have actually configured video stitching. And because we do not have one PC for one stitch that is basically lying around and it's taking space and being annoying, so we have actually done that in a virtual machine on a Windows server. So for that, you need to have a specific graphic card. You need to know what you're doing. it's not something which is officially supported, but if you have any requirement about this and you want to test stuff, please feel free to send me an email, and I will basically give you a hint about what we've done here and then how it works. Okay, Grigory is saying, he's thanking someone about probably this file system, and it seems they're using a backnet to OPC converter, which is great. That's typically what you want to do with this. As long as you can find an OPC server for anything, then you can connect stuff. It's not too difficult. Wacho, another question, is it possible to stitcher several cameras with HD resolution? Sometimes the customer don't need to zoom in. Yeah, so what you have to understand about stitching is the camera inputs do not matter too much. So whether your camera input is normal HD, just 4CIF, or Ultra HD, you can stitch anything at the same time. And it's not really important if you have 16 time Ultra HD or 16 time 4CIF. What matters is the output resolution. At the moment, we limit that to 1080p, but it could be that in the future that we basically enable that to go higher. One more thing, here you say the customer don't need to zoom in. You can still, because the stitching engine is basically providing you with an on-VIF profile S PTZ camera. So you can always disable the PTZ function if that's what you want. If you don't want customer to be able to pan tilt in, you can always disable that. Okay, so it seems that we went through all the questions. So if there are no more questions, then thanks a lot for having participated.